Sometimes the universe forgets what it took from you until it decides to give it back in a language only you can hear. For years, I drifted through the ruins of old stations, scanning dead frequencies, chasing ghosts of a world that used to mean something. Then I heard it, a sound too familiar to be random, too alive to be a dream. A 100-foot dog, lost among stars, calling home across the impossible. This is Echo of Orion. The message came through static, buried between the ghost voices of dying satellites. At first it was nothing, just another ripple in the cosmic noise I'd been listening to for years. But then I heard it, a deep, rhythmic thud, not mechanical, organic, heavy, and then a low, aching whimper. It lasted exactly 7.3 seconds before fading into silence. That was the first time I heard Orion again. My dog, my friend, my only family left after the collapse of Earth's orbit colonies. I thought he'd died years ago, lost during the evacuation of Station Delta 47 when the orbital fires took the upper decks. But something in that sound felt alive. And alive means hope, even when hope is dangerous. I replayed the recording 39 times, mapping every sound wave. The coordinates formed a half-broken string of data that pointed somewhere deep in the Ophiuchus sector. A world listed in old archives as Theta 9, an abandoned terraformed test planet. That's where the signal came from, the place no one had been for 100 years. I leaned back in the pilot chair, staring at the cracked glass of my navigation console, and whispered, "If you're out there, boy, hold on." The engines of the ship, the Nomad, coughed awake, lights flickering like uncertain promises. The journey would take 14 days through slip space if I survived the drift storms. As the ship tore away from the derelict listening post, the stars bent like molten glass. I opened the old holofile I'd locked years ago, Orion chasing waves on the methane shores of Titan, his fur glowing in the reflected light of Saturn's rings. He wasn't born like other dogs. He was engineered in the orbital labs, half canine, half bioresonant organism, capable of surviving radiation storms and vacuum exposure for brief periods. We built him to guide colonists through alien terrains. But to me, he wasn't a prototype. He was home. The closer I got to Theta 9, the stranger the readings became. The planet's magnetic field was pulsing in intervals that matched a heartbeat. And buried under it, Orion's signal, faint but consistent. I rerouted oxygen reserves to the thrusters. When I broke orbit, the planet looked wrong. The clouds spiraled inward like smoke being sucked into a drain, and lightning flared in slow motion. I descended through the storm, hull screaming, alarms spitting red. When I crashed through the final layer of clouds, I saw it, the Valley of Bones. But they weren't bones. They were the skeletons of machines, terraformed towers split open like ribs. And in the middle of them, a massive footprint. Each paw mark was the size of a shuttle. My breath fogged the visor. Oh, Orion! What happened here? The first night on Theta 9 was a blur of metallic winds and electric rain. My shelter cracked with each gust. I kept replaying the signal on my wrist console, but the pattern kept changing, almost as if it knew I was listening. I set up a drone and sent it east. 3 kilometers out, it picked up movement. Large, deliberate, slow. Then the image froze, static, and something huge moved between the lightning bolts. The drone's final feed showed a shadow, tall, fur-matted with bioluminescent streaks, eyes glowing like dying suns. Then the feed died. My pulse kicked. "He's alive," I whispered. The air outside tasted like copper. My legs didn't wait for permission. I grabbed the tracker and followed. The valley led into a canyon of twisted metal roots, the remains of an unfinished biocity. It felt like walking inside the veins of a dead god. Each step echoed with low frequencies, harmonics that made the stones hum. The deeper I went, the more I saw. Giant claw marks across the walls, like someone or something had fought against the planet itself. My suit sensors glitched. Then I heard it again, the whimper. Closer I ran. My boots splashed through shallow water that rippled with faint blue light, each ripple whispering back my name in distorted echoes. Then the ground trembled, dust fell like snow, and he stepped into view. Orion, my boy, but he was different. He was enormous now, his fur a storm of luminous fibers, muscles shaped by gravity he'd outgrown. His collar still blinked faintly, fused with his neck like part of his skin. His eyes found me, and for a second he froze, as if the years between us had condensed into a single heartbeat. He tilted his head, the same way he used to when I'd call his name. I raised my hand slowly. "It's me, buddy." He took one step forward, and the ground erupted. Something else had been buried beneath him. A mechanical spire cracked open, rising between us like a serpent of steel. Orion roared, the sound bending the canyon air. He lunged at it, teeth sinking into cables, claws shredding metal that screamed like tortured violins. Sparks lit the storm. I watched him fight, this magnificent, gentle creature turned godlike guardian. And I realized he wasn't lost. He was protecting something. The spire fired a beam that grazed his side. His roar became pain and fury and memory all at once. I ran forward, shouting his name until my voice bled. When the beam flickered out, the canyon fell silent, except for the rain. Orion stood over the wreckage, bleeding light, chest heaving. I reached him, placed my hand against his leg. His fur buzzed with low electrical warmth. He bent his head toward me, and for the first time in years, I heard his breath again. Slow, tired, alive. "You waited," I whispered. His heartbeat was strong enough to shake the earth. In his eyes, I saw reflections of stars I hadn't reached yet. But behind him, deep in the canyon's throat, another light began to pulse, and this one was calling me by name. I followed the pulse through the tunnels beneath the canyon, Orion's steps shaking the walls as he limped behind me. The tunnels were older than the machines, carved into the crust by something alive. The pulse wasn't mechanical, it was biological, like a heartbeat echoing from the planet's core. I realized then, Theta 9 wasn't just a world, it was a living organism, and Orion wasn't stranded. He'd been chosen. The collar on his neck wasn't just a tracker, it was a link. At the center of the tunnels, the ground opened into a vast chamber filled with floating orbs, memory nodes glowing with ancient light. Each orb played scenes of the planet's history, the builders, the first breath, the birth of its artificial soul. The planet had created guardians, beings made from flesh and light, to protect its consciousness when the colonists abandoned it. Orion had been one of them. The dog I loved had been rewritten into the planet's protector. My signal hadn't reawakened him. It had interrupted his purpose. The orbs dimmed, leaving one brighter than the rest. It hovered near me, humming in the same pitch as Orion's heart. When I touched it, a voice filled the chamber. Not words, just a memory translated into emotion. "If you love what you lost, you must let it stay found." Tears blurred the helmet glass. I turned to Orion. His breathing was shallow but calm, as if he understood. He pressed his massive head against me gently, almost crushing but tender. The chamber ceiling began to collapse. The planet was resetting, sealing the wound I'd reopened. I ran to the exit, shouting for him, but he didn't follow. He just stared, eyes bright with the same loyalty that had brought me here. Then the light consumed him. When I woke on the surface, my ship's beacon was flashing. The canyon had sealed. No trace of him, only silence, and one new signal in my receiver. A steady pulse that matched a heartbeat I knew too well. Not from below anymore, from orbit. I looked up at the clouds parting just enough to show a new moon, glowing faintly, shaped like a sleeping giant curled around the planet. He'd become part of Theta 9. He wasn't lost, he was home. I stood there for hours, whispering his name to the sky, until the echo came back softer, deeper, eternal. Good boy, Orion. He wasn't just my dog, he was the last heartbeat of a forgotten world. If you felt that silence the way I did, don't let it fade. Hit that like button, share this story with someone who believes in impossible friendships, and subscribe for episode 2, The Planet That Dreamed in His Shadow, because some echoes never die.